Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ayman Marzuki, and for this video I'll be talking about the country profile of Japan. So let's talk about the background of Japan. Japan is the most prominent island country in the world, meaning the most famous island country in the world, but also one of the most famous countries in the world, period. It has 6,852 islands, not surprising due to it being a very island-based country. It's located within the Ring of Fire, which is a geographical area that is constantly experiencing volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and tsunamis. And it's Japan is also the 11th most populous country in the world, with a population of 124.8 million people. A very quite an achievement for an island nation. And it's also the most urbanized country in the world, meaning that the majority of its citizens live in cities and not rural areas. And because of this, it also has the most populous metropolitan area in the world, which is the Greater Tokyo area, located in Kanto. And the ethnic population of Japan is 98.1% Japanese, making it very homogeneous. While Japan is the third largest economy in the world, only below America and China. Well, it used to be the second largest economy in the world, but the Japanese economic bubble led to great economic hardship for Japan. And because of this, Japan has the highest ratio of public debt to GDP among developed nations, which is considerable considering Japan is a highly developed nation, yet it also has a high rate of debt. And another thing about the Japanese economy is that it's highly dependent on the export of high technology manufactured products, because Japan itself lacks a lot of raw materials that it could export, and only 11.5% of its lands are suitable for agriculture. Although that land that is suitable for agriculture is also one of the most fertile lands in the world. Now, what about the political system of Japan, or as it's known, Seiji? Well, Japan is a multi-party, bicameral, parliamentary, democratic, constitutional monarchy. And what this means is that simply that it's a democratic country with a multi-party system like us, Malaysia. And bicameral means the parliament has two houses, upper house and lower house. And it's a constitutional monarchy, similar to us, means that there is a king in Japan that functions as the head of state, and a prime minister that functions as the head of government. Of course, in Japan, they're not called kings, but emperors. And unlike us, they have been in that post for thousands of years. Like I said before, it's a representative democratic country. The picture above is a picture of the parliament, or as it's known in Japan as the National Diet, and below is the meeting of the major party in Japan, called the Liberal Democratic Party. And I'm sure you all are aware of Shinzo Abe, the former Prime Minister of Japan, who is quite a famous figure. Yes, like I said before, and like Malaysia previously, the politics in Japan, it was mainly dominated by one political party called the Liberal Democratic Party, or Jio Minshuto in Japan. The thing is with Japanese politics is that liberal political reform and activism are not as prominent as in USA, since in USA the Democratic Party is quite a powerful force, and in America there's always a swing between right-wing policies or left-wing policies. But in Japan, so far, it's mostly not necessarily right-wing, but mostly centrist, and very rarely they went into very liberal policies. And overall, Japanese people not very enthusiastic about politics or elections. Very few people show up to actually vote, since they all consider politicians to be cut from the same cloth. So let's talk about the government structure of Japan, which is, in truth, the government structure is similar to many other government structure of other countries. It's consisted of the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judiciary branch. And you can see on the picture on the right is a brief summary of how those three branches interconnect with each other. So first, let's talk about the executive branch. The leader of this branch is the Prime Minister, and the function of the executive branch is to present bills to the National Diet, and the National Diet here is the legislative branch. The executive can also declare emergency, and they could even dissolve the National Diet. Now, what about National Diet or the legislative? Well, their function is, firstly, they consist of two parts, like I said, bicameral. The first is the House of Representatives, which is the lower house, and second is the House of Councillors, the upper house. And in the legislative, the House of Representatives do most of the legislative functions of the National Diet, while the House of Councillors simply monitor or judge them. So they're responsible for making laws, for appointing the Prime Minister, or at least taking part in the appointment process, and also for drafting amendments to the Constitution. Now, what about the judiciary branch? Well, it is firstly independent from both the executive or the legislative branch. It consists of the Supreme Court, the High Courts, District Courts, Family Courts, and Summary Courts. The picture above is a picture of the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court reviews actions of the executive and the legislative branch, while the High Court listens to appeals regarding the family courts and the district courts, because the family and district courts are the main courts in Japan, as in the largest, while the summary courts is responsible for the most minor offenses. So for my government agency case study, I chose a very important government agency in Japan called the National Police Agency, also known as Keisatsucho in Japanese, with the word Keisatsu simply meaning police. And this picture is a picture that briefly details the structure of the National Police Agency. As you can see, above the National Police Agency is the National Public Safety Commission, and above that is the Prime Minister, meaning that the National Public Safety Commission is a ministry unto itself and not under the Ministry of Justice. And this shows that Japan takes the function of their police very seriously and took great pains to insulate the police from other ministries or other politicians. That's why the National Public Safety Commission's only function is to monitor the police agency. So the National Police Agency is responsible for the affairs of the entire police force in Japan, and they also administer the activities of the prefectural police. Because in Japan there's like more than 40 prefectures, and 5 or 10 of these prefectures will be classified under one regional police bureau. For example, Shikoku, I think, has 10 prefectures. I'm not sure. The National Police Agencies enact standards and the policies of each prefectural police. That's why they divided the regional bureaus into the different geographical regions, which is Shikoku, Kyushu, Tokyo, Kanto, Tohoku. And the National Police Agency, like I said before, operated under the National Public Safety Commission. And from the picture, you can see that the National Police Agency is divided into 6 internal bureaus and 9 regional bureaus. With the internal bureaus, you can already know the function of each bureau based on their names alone. Now, for the public administration issue that Japan faces, I'd like to talk about the Fukushima nuclear disaster. It is the most devastating national disaster that Japan faces in recent history. It happened on 11th of March 2011, and the thing is, the worsening condition of this disaster was brought about by the weakness in Japan's bureaucratic structure. Because the thing is that the nuclear plant was owned by a private company, but the but there are regulatory agencies responsible for regulating and ensuring the safety of the nuclear power plants, and they are the NISA and the NSC. However, these two agencies are ineffectual because these two agencies are operating under the Ministry of Industry and Trade, and the thing is, the Ministry of Industry and Trade wants to promote the use of nuclear power plants. So there's a conflict of interest here. And when the disaster was worsening, the NSC didn't want to acknowledge that the situation could be worse, which made their response weak. And the government, when the situation did become worse, were reluctant to release information about the true scale of the disaster, resulting in various residents of Fukushima moving to certain areas which are already irradiated with nuclear radiation. However, they didn't know this, so they suffered. And to me, this is the most blatant act of government weakness in Japan ever. So that is all I'd like to say. Thank you for listening, and Assalamu alaikum.